right. Call back to session, meeting of the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Supervisors Frost,
Here.
Natoli,
Here.
Peters,
Here.
Cerna,
Here.
Kennedy,
Here.
and you have a quorum.
Thank you. Next up.
Okay, for item 42, we're holding this over till 2:45, so we're going on to item 43.
Okay.
Adopt an urgency ordinance temporarily prohibiting no-fault evictions through December 31, 2019 for residential real property built prior to January 1, 2005.
Mr. Gill?
Ms. Travis?
Sorry, he's asking me a question.
He's entitled to do that. He's a reporter.
I know.
That's what they do.
Thank you. I will kick this off for your discussion. As you all know, on October 22nd, the board requested that staff come back with a possible urgency ordinance related to no-fault evictions. The ordinance that you have before you closely mirrors the no-fault eviction moratorium that will be effective on January 1st with the enactment of AB 1482, the Tenant Protection Act of 2019. Basically, to summarize, no-fault evictions are prohibited under this ordinance. At-fault evictions, which are enumerated in Section 4B of the ordinance, would be allowed. This ordinance exempts certain different types of housing. There's 9 different exemptions that can be found in Section 4C as well. One of the key questions that I think your board has and that advocates have asked is what types of eviction notices that have been served already would this apply to? It does apply to eviction notices that have been served but not yet finalized, and it also applies in a case where there has been an unlawful detainer proceeding or other litigation started but not yet concluded. This office believes that this ordinance is legally permitted as an exercise of the police powers to preserve public peace, health, and safety, and those findings are indicated as well in the ordinance.
Thank you. Mr. Cerna.
Thank you. Just want to make clear with our county council, and so the public has the benefit of hearing the answer. This measure, this urgency ordinance, if approved by, I believe it's going to require 4/5 of this board.
That is correct.
It will be in effect for basically the balance of the calendar year, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So it's not like we're proposing an inability for landlords to otherwise act outside of the parameters of this ordinance other than 7 weeks or so.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Natoli.
Yeah, just a question for council. So in the ordinance proposal, it does address, and I assume that comports with state law, but at-fault just cause actions by which evictions can be served. Just help me understand, though, you said about when there's been an unlawful detainer filed. So in a case where the landlord believes, as for one of the things that's outlined in the ordinance on page 4, continue over to page 5, but that's being challenged in court, so this would then, this ordinance, in addition to those no-fault notices, but where an at-fault action was taken, and then unlawful detainer action to defend against that was brought, it would forestall those evictions as well? I mean, they already are under the law. I mean, obviously there's a due process, but I want to be clear what you said a moment ago as it related to due process.
Right. I believe that your statement is accurate. In the context of this situation, though, I think it's important to realize in the case of no-fault evictions, and if a tenant did not move out, then the property owner could then start an unlawful detainer action. And if that unlawful detainer action was still being litigated after the expiration of the original notice, that's the key, I think, difference here.
Okay, so it goes to the short time frame.
Right. So I think it gives the tenants a little bit more protection for no-fault eviction notices that haven't been fully litigated yet.
Okay, in order to meet the 90-day requirement in advance of the state law kicking in January 1st, any of those no-fault eviction notices would have had to have been delivered already? Because I think we heard testimony last week that some folks were looking at the day before Christmas or day after Christmas, and so something that was a no fault that was filed today, not enough time would pass, so it would be, there would, in essence, it would be a moot point?
No, if it was served anytime today and after, then this ordinance would be applicable. If it was served anytime before today, it would still be applicable if those two things hadn't happened. If the notice hadn't expired,
Okay.
the 60 or 90 or 30-day notice, or if the unlawful detainer litigation or any other litigation challenging that eviction was not yet concluded.
And so the effective date of this goes back to the date of the legislation being statuted at the state level, October 8th? Is that
No, the
right?
effective date is today, if you pass it.
But it forestalls if people give a
The effect
notice.
of the ordinance can go back to when an eviction notice was served, if it's not yet run out. The time has not run out. So it's not really tied to the actual passage of the litigation, and it's not considered a retroactive ordinance because the effective date is here forward. But the key, I think, is that it applies to eviction notices that have already been served but not yet expired.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Turner.
Thank you. This is a question for our CEO, because I know we received a late email expressing great concern about the timing of inspections at the Bell Avenue apartments relative to the timing of this hearing, with the concern being that residents and those advocating on behalf of them would not have an opportunity to be in two places at once. So I'd like you to speak briefly to that, please.
Sure. I'm going to have Steve Hartwick give you the background. The bottom line is that we did not do any inspection this morning, but Steve will give you some more detail on it.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor Serna. As a part of the rental housing inspection program, which the board approved and staff implemented in 2008, with the purpose of proactively identifying blighted or deteriorated conditions, and also to ensure that rental housing units are meeting all the building standards. This program is ongoing. It's scheduled about 60 days in advance for every unit, every property that they're going to inspect. I did forward an email to the board earlier this morning showing that the property owner was actually placed on notice October 3rd that the inspection was scheduled for today. So that was prior to any understanding that we had that there were eviction issues with that particular location. So we did cancel today's inspection so that tenants and or property representatives could make themselves available for this meeting, and we'll reschedule that for your future date. But this program is to ensure that tenants are receiving housing that meets all the standards and is not in a blighted condition. So that's the main reason for the program. When staff managers of the unit tend to look through the agenda to see if there's anything that might be an issue, this is a generic item to talk about no eviction moratoriums, and so it doesn't mention that particular location specifically. So they were not aware that that was kind of the root of maybe some of this discussion today.
Great, I appreciate the explanation. So the bottom line is that it was more or less just chance that the date happened to be November 5th. There was no intent to try and keep people from being speaking at this hearing or being at this hearing based on the fact that they might feel like they have an obligation to be at the apartment complex.
That is correct.
Great, thank you.
Supervisor Frost.
Just have a question for County Council relating to the no fault. And I wanted to ask, does this allow for termination of sale of a rental? Like if an owner is selling their rental, does it allow them to terminate tenancy for the sale of a rental?
Only
Or
in
does
the case where there's an at-fault justification for doing so.
So an innocent property owner who is just selling their property can't sell their property?
No, they can still sell the property. It has nothing to do with the sale of the property. It just has to do with the tenants residing in a
So they
property.
can't take possession of their property. This would obstruct them taking possession of their property if someone wanted to come in and buy it as an owner-occupied purchase.
You know, if it would apply to owner-occupied purchases, that is one of the exemptions for owner-occupied real estate.
So if it was
that would be
being,
exempt from the ordinance.
if it was being sold as a rental, then it would not be exempt.
Well, it doesn't address sale, like I said, so that's, but if you look in the ordinance in section 4C subdivision 5, would be
Lisa, could you
applicable?
use the microphone a little better,
Sorry,
because I'm
sorry.
having trouble
Yeah.
catching you.
Would section 4C5, single owner occupied residences are not covered by this ordinance. Similarly, if there's a duplex that is owner occupied, it's not covered. So there are definitely situations where owner occupied situations are not covered by this ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if that's all from the board, I do have a number of speaker slips. So I'm going to let you know, I'm going to stay pretty solid on the 2 minutes. So you might want to look at both screens just to take a look, because we have, I think, probably more cards than people at this point. But so I will be cutting at 2 minutes, just so that we're fair. And the first is Jim Lofgren.
I have a document to project on the overhead. Do I place it right here? See if I've got it correct. There you go. Good afternoon. I'm Jim Lofgren with the California Apartment Association. Members of our association include owners and managers of multifamily and single-family properties throughout California. The owners of the Bell Oak Apartments are not members of our association, and I am not speaking on their behalf. However, at the request of Supervisor Peters, I contacted representatives of the owners to strongly encourage them to reconsider their decision to terminate the large number of tenants at their property. First of all, I want to make it clear that the California Apartment Association does not condone large-scale terminations at properties for the sole purpose of avoiding the impact of the new state law. We have counseled our members to exercise extreme caution in making decisions to terminate tenancies in the current housing market. However, the situation at Bell Oaks Apartments is both unique and unfortunate. It involves 2 elderly property owners and a lengthy and contentious property sale that was settled through litigation. Furthermore, the actions of the Bell Oaks owners should not be viewed as an example of widespread use or abuse of termination notices by rental owners in the Sacramento region. I have surveyed our members, talked to the realtors, talked to SHRA. There probably are incidents of this occurring, but not at the scale that you may have seen in LA, where a prominent attorney spoke out and advocated for this. We are not doing that in this area. That being said, something needs to be done at Bell Oaks, and I have some. I've been involved in some intervention, and I was notified today that the owner has distributed this document to all of its tenants. I look at the clock here. I want to make sure I have time, but I'm happy to go through that point by point.
Jim, you can slow down. I asked the chair that you have more
Okay,
time.
very good. I was trying to abide by the 2 minutes. So, and I appreciate Supervisor Peters working with me, and the leverage of this prospective ordinance enabled me to meet with the owner and encourage them to do something. And what they have notified all of the residents, and I have received notification that this was distributed at the property this morning. That was a condition. Basically, the owners have said that they will issue a refund of the full security deposit to all renters on the property. They will also provide a moving assistance allowance of $2,500 per unit. Renters can use that for their rent, or they can use that for moving expenses, but they get the full dollar amount. There are tenants that have already left the property. It was requested, and they agreed that any renter who has already vacated the property will be notified, and they will receive their full security deposit and the full $2,500. We are aware that at the property right now that there are, I believe, 17 individuals and families that have not found new housing. Of those, 12 are in the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. I received positive news this morning that they're going to attempt to allow all of those residents to remain at the property. The property is, my understanding, is going to go through a renovation, but they were going to juggle them around and keep them there. That's not firm. I have no confirmation of it, but I think there's some real good progress towards that. That would leave only 5 other families that are still would be seeking housing. And so this effort by the owner is an effort to ensure that nobody remains homeless. I will commit that the California Apartment Association will continue to monitor this to ensure that nobody remains homeless. But I would say that there are, in regards to the ordinance, you know, I think that there are a lot of, it's probably would create a greater hardship for owners who are in the middle of already existing terminations for a variety of reasons. It could be a cannabis illegal grow at their property where they can't get other residents to step in and say that's happening, so you often do a no-fault eviction of that nature. I think that there are a lot of circumstances out there that would be disruptive, and so sometimes as we try to fix something, we create more problems. My focus has been solving the problems for the tenants at that property. I'm not sure what we came up with will satisfy everybody, but we scrambled quickly. We wanted it done by today, and this is what we have to offer. Senate Bill Assembly Bill 1482 allows, when you renovate a property, for you to end the tenancy, but you have to give 1 month's rent to the tenant. In this case here, we pushed, and at the direction of Susan Peters, she wanted more. And that way we asked for $2,500, so that would cover expenses and also offset some of the increases as the residents move to perhaps higher, more expensive housing. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Other questions of Mr. Lofgren? Thank you. I did let Mr. Lofgren go a little bit over his time because he was providing new information to the board.
I have one question.
Yes, Ms. Peters.
So the moving allowance is $2,500, and if I understand it correctly, the rents of those apartments are from $950 to $1,050 a month. Is that correct?
Approximately, yes.
Yeah, approximately. So more than twice as much.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions of the board? And we will go to public comment. First is Robert Copeland. Robert will be followed by Crystal Sanchez.
The no-fault eviction moratorium needs to be passed right now, because whatever Jim Lofgren said, people are still going to get evicted in some of these apartment complexes. That needs to be stopped. Several cities in California have already passed theirs. So can the County Board of Sacramento do the same thing? I think Bell Gardens, Daly City, Redwood City, and this morning Pasadena passed it. And I also believe LA County and City also passed theirs. And there will be more people here, but a lot of the people are going to the City Council for rent control. So that's where I'm headed right now. Thank you.
Crystal Sanchez. Howard Lawrence will follow Crystal.
Okay, like I told you guys earlier, I'm part of the homeless union, but I'm also very involved with our community. I run a couple of our pay it forward sites on Facebook. I also am part of the rental groups that are in those. I'm an administrator on a lot of those pages. So the first thing that I want to point out to you guys, this fear of displacement, it's huge, it's massive. We have people calling me in fear of homelessness. Where do I go? What do I do? What are the steps? I'm being evicted. My rent just got raised $500. This has to stop. This is causing homelessness. It's a major cause of homelessness. It's not just a small cause, it's huge. Once these people become on the streets, they have the inability to recover because most of them work minimum wage jobs and do not make 2.5 times the rent to get into a new place. Low income families are being displaced. We have children on the street. I am taking clothes to children on the streets because they are being displaced because of these rent increases. Also, we have seniors who are on fixed incomes. These rent increases are making it so that they are unable to get life necessities, medication, food, and that goes for a lot of people. You need to think that minimum wage is very low, and that if you are displaced, there's no way to recover from that. Thank you.
Thank you. Howard Lawrence, followed by Elliot Stevenson.
Good afternoon, Chairman Kennedy, members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Howard Lawrence, and I am a representative of Sacramento Act, Area Congregations Together. You know, over the years, in many discussions I've had with my friends and colleagues about the way government works, I said it usually moves very slowly. But today, you're proving that statement to be false. And I think you're moving very quickly. And also over the years, back when I actually worked for a living, I managed a staff that we did a lot of crisis management. And I recall calling my staff together and trying to figure out how to deal with a complex problem. My advice to them was, well, when in doubt, do the right thing. This ordinance is the right thing. Please pass it.
Thank you, Howard. After Elliot will be John Foley.
Good afternoon, Board. First of all, I sure wish Jim could be at every complex that we're at organizing, because he seems to really make things move in the critical moments. But short of Jim being present at every complex in Sacramento County, I want to strongly urge you to pass this moratorium now. As we know, this crisis was sort of created by a lapse in statewide policy, and this is an effective and easy vote that you can take today to stop that gap in the interim and help thousands of tenants throughout your jurisdictions. Given the discussion today around homelessness, I think this vote is also timely. There is no question there is a causal relationship between eviction and homelessness. Given the conversation earlier around the Policy Council and the issues afflicting the unhoused in this county, I know you were all deeply invested in preventing further homelessness. This moratorium can do that. For the sake of your most vulnerable constituents, most of whom could not make it here because they're working or taking care of their children, many of whom were here earlier but had to leave, unfortunately, because the agenda went long, I want to strongly encourage you all to pass this urgent no-fault eviction moratorium today. Do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. John Foley, followed by Rick Eaton.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is John Foley, Executive Director of Sacramento Self-Help Housing. As you know, we run your renters helpline that you support. People call us every day, haven't gotten an eviction notice. You can't fix that, but you can make a small stab in that direction by preventing people, getting evicted in this way for the next couple of months. I think it's a smart thing to do. These emergency things are always a pain in the neck, and they always have unintended consequences, so I'm not sure what bad things are going to happen if you do this, but it's only going to last till the end of the year, so it's a lower risk, I think, than a lot of things. So I'm assuming you're going to do this, and I thank you if you are. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Rick Eaton, followed by Nico Comtois. Comtois?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Rick Eaton. I come before you as a volunteer with Sacramento Area Congregations Together. Sacramento Act strongly supports the proposed ordinance. We wish to thank Supervisor Cerna for your leadership in bringing this forward. Numerous cities and counties across the state have passed similar measures in the past weeks. These include Los Angeles, San Mateo, Daly City, Milpitas, Pasadena, Redwood City, and we know of at least 7 others, and there are probably more who are hearing this today or heard a similar ordinance yesterday. We all know that the center of a stable family environment and stable neighborhoods are safe and affordable places to live. The members of our community, this eviction moratorium will stop evictions that are targeted at the most vulnerable among us, those living on fixed incomes, utilizing vouchers, and living in the scarce remaining affordable rental housing in the county. A vote for this ordinance is a vote for families and a vote for neighborhood stability. Failure to pass this ordinance will inflict the trauma of homelessness on dozens and possibly hundreds of our residents. As a community, we're better than that. We urge you to pass the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Nico? And Nico, if you could help me with your last name, that'd be appreciated. How bad was it?
I'm used to saying Comtois, but it's Comtois.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Well, my name is Nico, and right now I live at Crestview North Apartments. Recently, they have increased our rent by 46.2%. Went from $920 to $1,312. And we got a cash for keys note taped to our door on the windiest day, and it just flew off, and we had to go get our neighbor to come get it, and they were offering us money for us to move by either September 15th or the 30th. Depending on either one, they'd give us a X amount of cash, which could be revoked at any time. So if we do agree on our mutual, whatever you'd like to call it, tenancy, it could be revoked at any time, and we wouldn't get our cash for keys, and then we'd be out. So I guess what I'm trying to say is these no-fault evictions that all these landlords are passing out just because they want to profit off of us being homeless, and they're not upgrading any of our apartments by increasing our rent all this money. They're not offering us any of our amenities that they say that they're providing. And, you know, like, I live with my mom. She's disabled, you know. She's on oxygen. She has stage 3 COPD. And she can't walk across the room without stopping and taking a breath. So it's not like I'm expecting her to lift a couch or a TV to move. She doesn't have a car. So if we're going to be a part of these evictions that are coming out, we're going to be a part of the homelessness that is being increased.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Mr. Natoli, yes.
Yeah, Nico, before you leave, I just wanted to ask you a question. You were given a notice, told you, you said September, so do you mean December or November? When were we given a notice to respond by?
Did I say, if I said September, I'm sorry, I meant to say November.
November, okay, so currently between now and the 15th, is that what you're?
Yeah, now on the 15th, they would give us the amount of $3,000, but realistically, like, we can't, like that,
Right.
What am I gonna do in like 10 days? Like, I have to pay for the, credit checks. It's $50 a pop, every place you go, it doesn't matter like what management company. They all do the same background check, and I can't take one from here and bring it to the other. Okay. And on top of that, those background checks we have to have to pay pet deposit, pet rent. What is that? Pet rent. Like, what is that? And, you know, it's just like,
okay.
All of this is happening so they can line their pockets, and they're in a business where the product that they have is people's lives.
Okay.
It's literally their lives. And so that's why I'm here to support this, and this needs to be passed, because if it doesn't get passed, you're going to have a much more excessive homeless problem.
Thank you, Nico.
Thanks, Nico.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Peters.
I had a question for Nico.
Oh, okay.
What jurisdiction do you live in?
Yours.
Where do you live?
I live in
Your district.
I couldn't hear the
I live in
apartment.
Carmichael, so I honestly
Yeah, okay,
don't know.
thank you. Not the city of, excuse me, I'm
Is-
asking a question here. So I just want to know where it was, if it was in Carmichael or City of
Yeah,
Sacramento or
Carmichael.
Rancho Cordova or wherever. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Nico. Chad. And Chad will be followed by Cherish Brown.
Hi, my name's Chad. I'm with the Sacramento Tenants Union. I just want to reiterate what Nico said. This buyout that's happening at Bell Oaks, offering tenants $25,000. That doesn't cover their first and last rent and security deposits for their new places. That doesn't help folks at all. In LA, where they have rent control protections, I was just told folks who get no-fault evictions can be offered up to $10,000 to $20,000 per tenant. So if we're talking about buyouts, let's talk about that amount of money. What we found out at Bell Oaks is that in the sale of property contract, it explicitly states that the tenants will be evicted due to AB 1482. I have the language right here. It says, due to the impending passage of a rent control bill, AB 1482, to be effective January 1st, 2020, time to issue lease termination notices is of the essence. And so we know that this is a court of proof settlement agreement that the county had to sign off on and sanction. So what this does is it sanctions these evictions of this building of tenants. That was the county that sanctioned these evictions. And so we know that we need 4 votes. And Susan Peters, a lot of these folks who are talking today are from your district. The Sacramento Tenants Union created a survey where respondents could put if they had received rent increases or eviction notices since January 1st. What we found out is that since June 1st of 2019. Over a third of these respondents have, and the problem is we don't need to, we have people telling us that this is happening all across the county in Sacramento, but there is no governing body that is tracking evictions, and so we have to be doing this time on our, doing this work on our own time. People are working full-time jobs. We don't have time to be gathering data on who's getting evicted. We're just hearing about it. Someone from Arden Arcade said that they've never seen so many U-Haul trucks on their street before.
Can you wrap it up, Shad?
Yeah, definitely. I just want to say that David Chu, who was the author of this bill, even wrote a letter in support of Redwood City's emergency moratorium, encouraging their council to pass it. So the person who wrote AB 1482 is supporting cities and counties across California to support these emergency moratoriums. Thank you.
Thank you. Cherish Brown? Cherish Brown?
So that's where I'm at, is I did give a lot of folks had to.
I'm sorry, Mackenzie, I didn't call you.
I know.
But you have a card in, so you'll be coming up.
I know. I just want to tell you that you guys got Cherish's stuff on as a letter, as well as another individual.
Okay, thank you very much, appreciate that. Les Light?
Cherish Brown was here. A lot of people were here. They came down here at great inconvenience to themselves, representing many, many other people who couldn't be here at all because they have to work, they have to go to school, they can't come at this time. And she came all the way down here, and we can't help but feel, you know what the priorities are. And this meeting, it just feels like it has been manipulated to eliminate these people from being able to come and speak to you. They are your constituents. So we have a disastrous situation with a plague of no-fault evictions. Most particularly, we found an acute in District 3. The Bell Arden Arcade area appears to be we have property investment developers essentially cleaning these neighborhoods of people. The people who live there, working class people, low income people, people on fixed incomes, and people of color. The most vulnerable are hit the worst. For decades, we have watched while affordable housing inclusion provisions have been stripped away to nothing. Now we suffer the result of that. We are told how diverse Sacramento is, but Sacramento is one of the most segregated cities in terms of housing. Where the patterns of class and racial exclusion have softened a bit in the past, now we see resegregation by the housing market. This is the structural reassertion of white supremacy by the most effective and malignant means, what you call market rate housing. This needs to be fixed. We need a moratorium on no-fault evictions
Can you wrap
now.
up, Mr. Light? Thank you very much. Debbie Stollery, followed by Angela Hearing-Jackson.
Hello, and thank you for listening. I'm Debbie Stollery. I am a tenant at Bell Oaks Apartments. I am one of the 5 that have to be out the day before Thanksgiving. I left this morning at 10 o'clock to make sure to get down here, and I had not received anything like the letter that was up on the board before I left. Also, I was not told that the inspections that were being done this morning, we were not told that those had been canceled. So some people did not come today because they were afraid of not being at their apartment when the management came in. I just figured, you know, if I didn't come, they won. Yes. I have looked for other apartments. People haven't also, I mean, they listed the rent and the deposit and so forth. A lot of places are requiring $100,000 renter's insurance. The application fees, which are non-refundable, they're now charging administration fees. And it used to be when you rented an apartment, you didn't pay water, sewer, and garbage was included. Not anymore. Now you're being charged $100 a month for water, sewer, and garbage, and if you are over $70 on the water, you pay the balance of that. So, and then they're charging now pet rent. Every month you pay so much for your pet. So I'm going to also have to get a truck and hire people to move me because I'm disabled. I can't lift things. This moratorium is very important. We really need help. We don't know who else to go to, so please.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. After Angela will be Kitty Bolt.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the board. I'll be brief. My name is Angela Hearing-Jackson. I'm here. I'm emotional. I've been here all day. I feel for the people that are experiencing possible evictions. I'm here to lend my voice. I'm here to advocate for the residents of District 3. I'm here to lend my voice and advocate for the residents of Sacramento County. I'm personally going through an issue with my apartment complex. So it's not just one single apartment complex that's in District 3 that's trying to make the moves before the end of the year. My apartment complex is called Atrium Court. And in the month of July, they made the attempt to serve 40 three-day pay or quits to 240 residents. So I would like for you to seriously pay attention and listen to the individuals that come up here that are asking for your assistance, for your vote to say yes. It's only 2 months. It might seem nothing to you, but it's something to the individuals that are being affected and to prevent homelessness in Sacramento County. So please pass this moratorium. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kitty Bolt. Followed by Jeffrey Tartagia.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Kitty Bolte. I'm a member of the Sacramento Tenants Union, and I live in District 1. And I'm up here to strongly encourage you to pass the eviction moratorium. And I want to counter what the gentleman from the Apartment Association said. What's happening at Bell Oaks is not anywhere close to an isolated incident. When the tenants union was originally contacted by people who are getting these 680 notices, that's kind of what we thought. And in the 2 short weeks that we've had to sort of dig into this, as a small volunteer organization, we have found, I think at this point, at least 6 complexes that we know of that are experiencing this. Many of them are in District 3 in the unincorporated parts of Arden Arcade, but they're all over, all over the county. And I guess my point is, if that's what we found as a volunteer organization in 2 weeks, surely that's only the tip of the iceberg in terms of how widespread this problem is. And yeah, I mean, I've talked to single moms who are facing eviction who tried to kill themselves before when they lost their housing. Excuse me. I also want to note that Arden Arcade, where a lot of this is happening, is one of the county's EJ communities. And I think your commitment to affordable housing and your proposed EJ policies is really commendable, and this is a really important complement to that. More affordable housing and supporting housing, thank you, is really important, but so is tenants' rights. And if people can't stay where they live, then what's the point of the wonderful planning that you're doing for those communities otherwise? Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Jeffrey, followed by Jeff Barca.
Please pass the ordinance, but please understand the problem's bigger than just this. Please spend the effort to understand this better. Please. That's where I'll end it.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Jeff Barca, followed by Renee Moya.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Jeff Barca. I live in District 3 in Bell Oaks Apartments. And I'm here today to urge you to pass this moratorium. This is a blatant attempt to circumvent AB 1482. As mentioned before, in court documents, they lay out that the whole reason they need the settlement is due to 1482 taking effect on January the 1st, and that they need to start these evictions so they can get people out. I would like to speak to what the gentleman from the Apartment Association mentioned. That letter he put up there, there's no legal apparatus for us to actually access that money. That is sunshine and rainbows. Doesn't mean that money's going to be coming to us. And $2,500 as a disabled person on Section 8 is not going to get me in a new place, even if I could find one that took a voucher. And also you'll notice that he did not promise that the people on vouchers could stay in the apartments. He said maybe, if we can work things out. That's a lot of ifs, maybes, possiblies. But you board members today can help us by passing this moratorium and allow us the opportunity to stay where we live. I've been in that apartment 4 years and I have never missed a rent check. I help around the apartment complex, and all I want is a place for my son and I to have a roof over our heads and be able to go about my life. Please pass this moratorium.
Thank you. Renee Moya? No. Okay. Dylan Miner? No. Robin Ayers?
Good afternoon. First of all, I wanted to say that I'm a constituent of Supervisor Frost, so nice to meet you. All right, so as a social worker, I can tell you that I currently and have recently worked with individuals and families who have been put in situations that were beyond their control and were basically because of actions of their landlords. The amount of stress put on their household was and is immense. We're talking about having to worry about where their family's going to put their heads at night. You know, also, in addition to that, typical things like going to work, trying to find work, trying to get their kids to and from school, making sure they have food on their table, you know, parenting their kids and more. If someone is on Section 8, the process of finding housing can take even longer, as the amount of housing available for those on Section 8 compared to those that have need of it is limited. So we're talking about households, aside from our unhoused population, our unhoused neighbors, who are in most need. So what I'm asking of you all today is to support the moratorium that places the stability of families, our neighbors, over the pocketbooks of landlords. The rent gouging policy that was put into place was done to prevent rent gouging. Landlords are now trying to use this time before the policy goes into effect to pad their accounts at the expense of other people. This kind of action is why we need real rent control. But today, you have the power to end this abuse and keep even more individuals and families from being put on our streets at no fault of their own. So please support this moratorium today moratorium on no-fault evictions. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. John Krantz, followed by Erica J.
Let's slam the front door shut on homelessness. I'd like to try to give you some of what my situation is right now. I lived on the river for 8 years. I've been in housing for 9. But the rents are going up real high. I live right down the street here, corner of 5th and I. It was cheap when I moved in there. They were giving us $100 if we could bring anybody else in there to fill in the place. But since the sports stadium went up, these rents are going up astronomically. Now here's part of my problem. If I lose this housing, I, like many people in my building, which is a low-income seniors building, is trying to live on a Social Security check. Now, to get into a new apartment, that's first, last, and security. Now, Social Security won't allow me to have more than $2,000 in the bank. If I put more than $2,000 in the bank, then they will take it. So how am I supposed to save up enough money to pay the rent on the place I'm already in for a month, so I'll have time to move, then pay first, last, and the deposit in the new place? There's just no way to do it. So guess what I wound up doing? I wound up back on the river. And I'm sorry, Mr. Cerna, but that's your district. And I know how it is out there. I don't like to see the river being polluted the way it is right now, but there's no place else for these people to go. And the other thing that's kind of concerning me here is that these rents in my apartment building, they were pretty much held under control until about 2 or 3 years ago, when a large corporation that manages properties controls 30,000 units spread from the Mexican border to the Canadian border. These are not people who live in Sacramento. These are not part of this community. They're an invasion. And they are pushing these properties up in value. So let's try to make a law here that reflects some concern for the people who live here.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Erica J. Followed by Ali Kwalikin.
Hi, my name's Erica. Do you guys have a document with the tenants union logo at the top of it?
Yep.
Can we get that out, please?
Why won't it?
Okay. So I first want to make a comment before this, and I do want to leverage my white privilege and ask for 30 more seconds afterwards. Okay, thank you.
I made note of that.
Sue and Susan, I'm addressing you because I'm a white female and I hold seats on county councils, and I just think it's important to say that as a white female who is on councils, who has this privilege, it's our responsibility to utilize that privilege in a way that leverages people of color's voices. That you're listening intently and that you're really understanding the impacts, even if you may not look like it. But that is our responsibility when we take seats and we're making decisions on people's lives. So with that being said, I would just like to note that in the environmental justice research document that's being proposed for SB 1000, this is an EJ community. This is in West Arden Arcade, and I don't really have 17 seconds up, do I?
You have another 20 seconds.
So Bell Oaks and Belfair are right down here. They're in Susan's district, and Susan's district also has the highest, significantly, has the highest cost burden households in her district as well. What's crucial for you guys to incorporate our feedback and to approve the ordinance is because it protects tenants and it prevents homelessness. And there's already a lack of neighborhood and community organizations and no safety nets in District 3. We do have some in District 1 and District 2. The community feedback focused on art and arcade community has implicated that.
Can you wrap up, Jarek?
Yeah, sorry. That it's essential for safety nets to be in place and for other services to be there if things like this are going to happen. And so it is going to exacerbate homelessness. And I'm pretty sure some of you guys can agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ali Qualican?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ali. I live on Crestview apartment. Like my colleague, she lives there. I used to live there for.
Could you speak up just a bit?
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
So I live in the Crestview apartment for almost 5 years now. I had increased for the rent from 950 to 1355, which is almost 45%. The same thing like her, without any improvement. If this one is gonna continue, I may become homeless. If I become homeless, I'm gonna be the charge of the county. So the budget that is allowed to the county to improve those apartments will be sent to me and to others, and to 100,000 of residents in Carmichael or in the county in Sacramento. So that's why I come here. I want you, before our last speaker, to vote for this ordinance to stop evictions, no fault evictions. But those whom they have a notice, if you send to someone a notice to leave his apartment within 6 months, it's kind of eviction, but it's not speaking, it's not writing. So you leave or you go out. If they go out, you know how they become. I told you, they become as homeless as any other that you see cross the street just by the ground. And I know 100% that every single day maybe you pass by and you see all those homelesses because of the rent they get, because of the increase for eviction notice they get on their apartment. Like I did receive it. It's a very, very beautiful day. New Year's Eve. It's very good when you see 55% increase on your rent on Christmas Eve as a notice. You pay this or you go. If I come here like any other Sacramento tenants, it's just to approve this ordinance now, not after. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you very much. Kiana Sorrell? Kiana Sorrell? No? Okay.
So I didn't prepare a speech or keynotes or anything. This is my first time doing something like this. I am a student in the master's program at CSUS, and I have sat down with President Nelson about this issue. I am currently a tenant at Bell Oaks Apartments and was at fear of losing my place as well until I was able to find my lease and realize that, you know, I had some legal stance behind me. However, that doesn't affect or that doesn't account for the amount of people around me who are elderly and disabled, who are at risk of or have been evicted. I am losing sleep over this as a social worker for Sacramento County CPS, who are working with families and are also dealing with evictions in your district. Is very just astonishing. And then to sit here and to look at the chamber of privilege, to expect anyone to really understand what these people are going through, I'm shaking because I have to sit before you and beg for you to vote on something that is detrimental to people's lives. And when we're talking about 42 units, we're not just saying 42 units. These are families. There are multiple people in these homes. I left Bell Oaks at about 10:30 a.m. and I didn't have any note or anything. I didn't see any notes or anything on the door. So for me to look at it here is just not even, I'm not going to do it, but it's like at the same time understanding that people's lives are being affected. And when we're talking about homelessness, Sac State is doing, we're doing extensive research on the homeless population in Sacramento County, which will only increase. It's kind of hard, Susan Peters, to know a lot of this is in your district, and I'm going to be very blunt. You are barely looking up at us and listening to our voices and hear what we have to say, and that's very disturbing. President Nelson is willing to get completely involved because I do a lot of things on the at the Sac State community, and telling him, like, I'm at risk of being homeless, and now there's lots of people who are also in this
Can you wrap up, Kiana?
Who are also in the same predicament and willing to get Sac State support to come in here and also urge you to vote on this matter.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Peter, and the last name starts with K. Sorry.
Hello there. I'm with the Sacramento Tenants Union, and I don't really have much to say except for what's already been said, but just the entire apartment complex of Bell Oaks has been evicted, and I find it very unlikely that all of them, did something bad all at the same time. So clearly this is all just to avoid 1482. And I find it very important that this is just a way to circumvent a law before they have to obey the law. And I think I find it very important that you pass this momentum because this is people's lives at stake and it's just terrible what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Alice Hodges. And after Alice will be Volma Zitmulchi.
Hi, my name is Alice Hodges. Thank you for hearing me today. I just want to say we encourage you to support this memorandum. There are people whose lives are being affected. There's people, the salaries that people make and live in these apartments does not afford them the right to be able to walk into someplace else and get a place to live. We may not understand exactly what that is, but you have to look at the people that it's affecting. Everybody, that could be any of us at any time in our lives. So I need to encourage you to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Volma? Followed by Gavin Mercer.
Good afternoon. My name is Volma Valsi with the Sacramento Central Labor Council. Just want to say Fabrizio and Tammy send their regards. They couldn't be here today. So this is what I want to say. Displacing families should be illegal. It's immoral and it is sad. I'm here today representing 180,000 members of the Sacramento County area. 150,000 of these members live here in Sacramento County. Their wages have not increased at all. Not a penny, but rents are being increased. So I am urging you, and I would also like to thank you all for bringing this ordinance forward, because we understand it takes a lot of work to get things done. But I am urging you all here, all 5 of you, to vote yes on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Gavin Mercer? And after Gavin will be Steve Hill.
Good afternoon, Council. I just want to say that the no-fault evictions are affecting a lot of people in my apartment complex too. I live at Carmichael Village and Ms. Peters' district, and we are told to be out by the beginning of Christmas, and I live with 2 other people, and we can barely afford the place as it is, and all the places are basically doubling our rent to move into a comparable apartment, and we live in a pretty small place, and it's forcing us to try to basically go into poverty, and we already are suffering as it is, and now with all of us being pretty low income workers and trying to find a place where they want first, last, a deposit, and it's almost $5,000 to move into a place. and our rent's only about $1,000. Like we don't have that kind of money, and we just can't afford to move in anything. So I just would like you guys to pass this so that we can, not be, to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Peters.
Gavin, a question. You live you're on Marconi in, what's the name of the apartment house again?
It's Palms Patio now. It was Carmichael Village before, Walnut and Marconi.
Were you offered
They didn't
the
offer us a
option
cent.
of moving somewhere else in the complex or to another complex?
No, they just told us we had to be out. And some of the other people who were offered, a payout, they didn't offer us a dime. They just told us we had to be out.
So some people to make sure I understand you right, some tenants were offered a buyout and some were not?
Not in our complex, no.
Oh, okay, different complex.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Hill. And after Steve will be Ken Kohler.
Good afternoon. I'm Steve Hill. I'm a renter. I live in Sacramento, and I urge you to pass this ordinance. I also work at SEIU Local 1000. We represent about 45,000 workers who live in this region, most of whom live in Sacramento County. Our members have been active in campaigns to protect renters, both with the city ordinance that was passed and the state legislation. It's bad out there. Which I'm not sure how much you all appreciate. In our canvassing, I got my own stories, but it's nothing compared to what we found with other people in more vulnerable positions. There are so many people who have terrible stories of treatment by landlords. The renter protection laws that have been passed are critical, but as you can see, there are some short-term significant consequences that vulnerable renters are going to bear, and you have the opportunity to protect them. This should be a no-brainer, a unanimous vote. You have people here who are negatively being affected by this, asking for your assistance. So I urge your positive vote, and I'd like to thank my supervisor for bringing this ordinance forward. Thank you.
Ken Kohler. Followed by Cesar Aguirre.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Many years ago, when I lived in Stanislaus County, I was the victim of a no-fault eviction on 2 occasions. It was not a pleasant experience. And I understand how the people going through this now, what their feelings are regarding it. Unfortunately, management sees it as property, but we see it as our homes. And they don't get the difference between a house and a home or simply residence. There's a big difference when you're taking away a person's home. And that's what you're literally doing in these no-fault evictions. I noted in the resolution that it ended on December 31st. This is a temporary resolution. It is not an indefinite resolution. I have a concern about that. I also have a concern about the residential real property prior to January 1st, 2005. It only applies to them. There were a lot of other residences after 14 years worth of residences, and I think they need to be included. I would prefer a wording, if you chose to amend it, stating that it prohibits no-fault evictions for residential real property, period. That's what we need. And I think that's what the people here today have said to you. Lastly, I know I'm about out of time. Rastly, my rent went up $300 a year ago today in North Natomas, Mr. Cerna's district, I believe. It also raised again this November, $85.
Can you wrap up?
The people, the managers out there, the property owners are just insane about how they're treating renters. It simply is not fair.
Thank you.
We need fairness.
Thank you. Cesar Aguirre. Followed by Nikki Jones.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. So I first want to address any concerns with not voting for this moratorium. I heard some questions from Sue Frost about the rights of owners in terms of, I guess, being able to do what they want with their property. So with that, we've heard a lot from folks today about how they're going to be impacted if, let's say, they get evicted, right? Because people are being served evictions. We already had a lot of people have to move out. It's affecting their livelihood, right? Having a place to live. Do we think that the impacts to apartment complex owners is anywhere near the same kind of level as that, right? And I understand that this is a rights issue, right? Y'all are in a position of power where you can determine with this moratorium what those rights are. This is an opportunity for our county to put people over profit, to make a decision that places compassion as a priority and to match what other places in the state are already doing. I can't tell you how important it is to be in the seat that y'all are in right now. We need to have every single one of you vote for this to show us that you're actually listening, that you actually do care about people's lives in our community, about what we were talking about before in terms of coming together to address homelessness. If we can't pass this moratorium to fix this loophole in people getting removed from their homes, then why are we even getting together to talk about those issues? Like, this is it, you know? I just want our district, our county to be, about what they talk about in terms of homelessness. So please all vote for this moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you. Nikki Jones, followed by Olivia Fisher-Smith.
Firstly, I'd just like to thank Supervisor Cerna for bringing this up last week, and for the County Executive's Office for bringing such a brave ordinance forward, but bringing forward an ordinance that's going to protect the lives, livelihoods, and stability of people who are already living on so many kinds of edges, The people who can just pick up and move are not the people who are going to be most impacted or affected if we're not able to get an ordinance passed today. The idea that a law has passed on the state level and that folks in extreme positions of power, landlords, who have more rights than almost anybody in our state. I think maybe only police officers have more rights than landlords in our state. And so for us to be here today to say tenants' rights matter too, to say that people's lives, their stability, the homes that they've built, the communities that they live in matter too, and that profit and that housing as a commodity has driven us to this point. We are not in a place we are in because a housing crisis and a homelessness crisis. We are in because our cities are so great to live in. No offense. We are here because of a speculatively driven housing market that is on the backs of people who are trying so hard just to live, just to get by, just to stay with their families, a couple of, the fact that there are people in this room who are today telling you that their displacement will be in effect, and that you can do something to stop their displacement is just so powerful. Thank you to the folks that came out today. Thank you to the folks that have spoken their vulnerability to power and who are going to make the difference in the city. And I can't say enough or more. And folks, I know that you can do the right thing despite pressure from major industries and major supporters and donors. You can stand up and do the right thing and let them know that this is for your constituents and that you want to work together to build for those constituents. And you can invite those people to be better actors in this situation. They're not good actors right now, and we need good actors.
Thank you, Nikki. Olivia Fisher-Smith.
Hi there, my name is Olivia Fisher-Smith. I'm a tenant in San Francisco, and I also work for Tenants Together, which is a statewide tenants organization. And in this period of time, after Assembly Bill 1482 has been passed, we've been receiving calls and notice from cities all over the state of evictions, and mass rent increases happening in response to the passing of this bill. The calls are pouring in, it's happening all over. And in many cases, these mass evictions and mass rent increases, it's stated explicitly that they're in response to the bill. It's stated in the notice. So a bill that was designed to protect tenants is actually being used against them because there are no enforcement measures right now. Evictions are always a crisis, but in this scale, evictions are a total emergency, which is why you need to pass emergency protections. And tenants in Sacramento and all over the state of California are looking at you all to set the precedent. Daly City, Milpitas, Los Angeles, Santa Cruz, and lots of other cities have already passed similar measures. And it's on you to stop this retaliation against tenants. So I'm just looking at you all to listen to the folks in your city who are calling for this. The organizers, the tenants are making it really easy for you. They're giving you exactly what you need and the answers you need to serve them. And I'm hoping that you'll listen. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to apologize in advance. Doris Cyprian.
Good afternoon, Board, Chair and Board, excuse me. My name is Darius Cyprian. I'm a resident here in Sacramento, and I'm here today with ACE, the Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment, and I'm for this moratorium. I just want to say, I want to ask that you support the millions of renters across California and the renters in your own district. And I'm asking that you protect the renters from unreasonable rent increase and basically retaliatory evictions. I'm gonna keep it brief, that's all I want to say, because that's what they're looking at, retaliatory evictions and unreasonable rent increase. So thank you.
Thank you. L.R. Roberts, followed by Bridget Duffy.
Hello again. Well,
I know you're not L.R. Roberts.
no, he's not here. Is he here?
No, she's
oh.
okay.
Oh, I'm
It's-
sorry. I was looking for you. I didn't find you.
I should have taken the ramp. Let's see. I'm a member of OWL, Older Women's League, National Lawyers Guild, and California Alliance of Americas, but of retired Americans, but I'm not speaking for them today. I'm speaking for myself. Richard and I, Richard Perry, we're retired now, and we're both disabled. And we own a house in Oak Park in Phil's district, and we don't have an accessible bathroom. And no one's really talked about the fact that a lot of the housing isn't accessible. So we have been renting a trailer down in Patrick's district at Holiday Mobile Village. And I told them I was going to be gone for 3 weeks to the National Lawyers Guild Convention. And while we were gone, our dog sitter found an eviction notice taped to our door. So, and then right after that, I got another rent increase. I've gotten several in the 3 years that we have slept there. So I think that's real interesting. Now I'm wondering, is it related to us suing them for racism last year, or is it related to the new law? So obviously there's a problem with sleazy landlords. This guy is really sleazy. So Richard's about to have major surgery. No, I am not moving him in the next 2 months. I cannot. So we obviously need some more renter protection.
Thank you. Bridget Duffy? Now it's your turn.
Okay, so putting an emergency moratorium on no-fault eviction is like turning off the faucet when you find that you forgot the bathtub was running and the whole living room is filled with water. Okay, it is a no-brainer, and it's really too bad that the government didn't respond to this crisis like 4 years ago, and we would have had much less homeless people right now and housing insecure people. I'm just a lot of people said a lot of good things, but I want to give everybody a little lesson in history. Early in the last century, there was the Glass-Steagall Act that was passed. That one act provided 70 years of the United States having the most stable and progressing economy. 70 years of progress, 7 years of stability. And the main aspect of that was that President Roosevelt took residential housing off the plate for speculative investors. In other words, you can invest in real estate, you can make money in real estate, but you cannot do it with residential housing. Now you could see why they did that. That is what's happening here. Speculative investors have gone into the business of making lots and lots and lots of money off of places where people live. Now this is destabilizing our entire society. It's not just the people that are most affected that lose their homes, but it's the rest of society as well. It's costing our society money. It's creating eyesores all over the place. There's health problems. The water table in San Francisco is starting to be affected with E. coli because of the lack of bathrooms in the homeless community. So it is your job as a government to address these things, and I do urge you to please pass a moratorium on eviction. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Bates. Followed by Keon Bliss.
Good afternoon, Lisa Bates with Sacramento Steps Forward. I'm here to show our support for the moratorium. Every day we see the destabilizing effects of not having housing or losing housing. To some of the data questions that were asked in the previous session, as well as this session, we are including now, or will be adding into our homeless management information system, a question regarding evictions so that we can better track that information and the impact that it's having on folks that are being served by the homelessness system. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Keon.
I'm not going to bother necessarily repeating what everybody else has said. This is an absolute no-brainer, obviously. But I want to point out that actions speak louder than words, and including body language as well. And I find it particularly troublesome, the priorities and the questions that have been asked, particularly by you, Sue Frost, about protecting the rights of homeowners, or not homeowners, owners, property owners, landlords and such. Not realizing that if there is one particular demographic here in the United States that has always been able to claim rights and protections, it is homeowners and property owners. Not just any property owners, mind you, white male property owners. Literally since the founding of this country, when the Constitution was written as a property rights document that added human rights as an afterthought, we have always prioritized the rights and interests of property owners. including that guy right there who was laughing at us, laughing at people giving heartfelt, heart-wrenching stories about being evicted from their homes, which many people can't live without. We've been protecting them literally from day one. People like you, been protecting them in government from day one. And it continues to reflect in our policies at the local, state, and national level. This moratorium is necessary. Housing is a human right, whether the Constitution says it or not. It is recognized in hundreds of countries across the world. We're the only country, one of the wealthiest countries on earth, that don't fucking recognize it, and we're fucking idiots for not doing so. You know it, I know it, and he sure as fuck knows it.
Mackenzie Wilson. Mackenzie. Followed by Ardell Harrison.
Okay, I want to start by commending Bell Oaks tenants for bringing the fire to this with the Sacramento Tenants Union, and then for Cerna for bringing this to today's agenda. Like you guys, thank you. I also want to say what's up to Lisa, because we just met, and I'm loving this language. I'm going to start with it. I also want to let you guys know that on top of all of the cool faces and everyone else here today, all these other organizations, fire, like everybody here knows what's up, and we also walked in with another 250 names from some petitions that we've taken from all around Sacramento County. Oh, so I'm going to start with this language because just it hits the point. Members of the community have testified that they have received issuance of no-cause eviction notices in anticipation of January 2020. Certain aspects of public peace, health, and safety are not adequately protected due to the lack of regulation of evictions from residential and rental housing in Sacramento County, and it is in the interest of the county, of owners and residents of rental housing units, and the community as a whole to protect this, right? The ordinance is necessary and essential to protect renters from no-fault evictions. It's necessary and essential to prevent the irreparable injury tenants would suffer due to the service of no-fault evictions notices prior to the effective date of 1482. The adoption of this not that part, but the purpose. This is really what got me. The County of Sacramento is experiencing a housing affordability crisis, which is driving homelessness and displacement of residents to an unprecedented scale. Many county residents are rent burdened, paying over 30% of their income on rent. Slightly more than half, 51% of Sacramento County renters are cost burdened and paying over 30% of their income in rent. So that's not even just like rent burden, cost burden, just to live. Right? About 27% of renters are severely cost burdened, paying over 50% of their income on rent. There are no renter protections presently existent for many households in the county, and that will be covered. And so just really quickly, I'll sum it up, I know. I need to double down on what my comrade Kennedy came up here and said, and what we just talked about over there, was that this work is hard, but the trauma that is happening to our communities is harder. And that decisions like today are actually life-saving and life-changing. And that today we have the opportunity to actually do that very thing. And if we don't, like what happens if we don't, right?
Something.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Ardell Harrison.
Good afternoon. I had signed up for 44,
okay.
So I'll go ahead and speak now if you want me to, or I'll wait my turn.
You can wait your turn.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
I'll be back.
Yeah. Okay, that's the last public comment I have. Ms. Peters?
Thank you. I forgot to ask earlier to have a representative of SHRA come forward and testify about their conversations about the voucher recipients that live in Bell Oaks.
Yes, Lachelle Dozier, Executive Director for Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency.
Okay, so...
So would you like me to just give background?
Yes, please, because you and I exchanged emails, and I just wanted that to be shared with the public who's here.
So we had an opportunity to meet with the property owner as well as Jim Lofgren to talk about the Section 8 or Housing Choice Voucher residents. There are currently 12 residents who live at the Bell Oak Apartments. 10 were served notices. One of the things that we did discuss with the owner is the possibility of rent increases. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit later as well in my budget presentation, but the payment standards have changed, and that gives the owner more opportunity to raise those rents without a negative impact to the Section 8 tenants. So they were unaware that they had that ability to do so, and they were going to look in the possibility of moving forward with those rent increases. And then therefore not issuing the notices, withdrawing the notices to the Section 8 tenants. So that's what we're currently working on.
Could you tell me a little bit about how that works? Is that a fairly recent change that the voucher programs allow for an increase in rent?
No, the voucher program has always allowed for owners to come in and do a rent increase based on what the market rent. So we do what we call rent reasonableness to determine if the amount that the landlord is asking is reasonable with what the market is. The uptick in the payment standard does make it more advantageous for owners.
Okay. And I understand that the lawsuit on the Bell Oaks property has kind of reflected that the current ownership is not really aware of opportunities like this.
Correct. We also talked to the property owner about if they do proceed with the renovation, that they would do temporary relocation in place for the Section 8 tenants because there are a large number of vacant units there. The thing that we proposed is that as those vacant units are renovated, then the HCV tenants could be moved to the vacant units, so that would cause them not to be displaced from the complex.
And would allow all the apartments to be renovated, which from our code enforcement, I understand is it's a severe need of renovation.
Yes.
So one of your comments was that of the 19 market rate units, all but 5 have located to other, you said units, did you mean in another apartment building?
In another apartment complex, and that was the information that was provided to us by the property manager.
Okay, so, and they'll all be eligible to get the $2,500 that the ownership is prepared to follow through on.
That is my understanding.
Yeah. Okay, so those people here who testified that they are on the voucher program, there's...
The process?
Yeah, the process.
So the process, when the voucher recipients receive their notice of termination, then the voucher recipients came into the office to get what we call a move voucher. Mm-hmm. So all of them were actually processed with that voucher to move. The problem, obviously, is that it's very difficult for anyone who's on the voucher program to locate housing immediately. So they did actually move forward with that. Their names are on other waiting lists, but those waiting lists are long.
But with this new ability to, it's not new ability, but newly discovered ability to get rent increases in the vouchers, they should be able to stay in those apartments.
That is what our goal is. Our goal is to work with the property owner to not displace any of the Section 8 or Housing Choice Voucher tenants based on being able to adjust the rent closer to what the market rent is.
And what about the part of the state law where, which I realize is not in place yet, but it says that the voucher tenants can't be forced to move?
The voucher tenants can receive a notice to move. It's a longer period of time. So they have more due process and there are more protections in place, but they can be issued a 90-day notice.
Okay, so...
But I think you might be referring to, does the new law, 1482, apply to voucher recipients?
Okay, so I thought that was already in place. No?
1482 exempts voucher holders. and any other deed restricted apartment complex because they already have other restrictions that are in place based on the regulations that govern their tenancy.
Okay. All right. Anything I forgot to ask you?
I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, I actually did receive 2 more cards in, so we'll go back to public testimony, and looks like Gigi Guevara, followed by Kevin Bolts.
Hi, my name is Giovanna, and I'm here representing myself. I'm not affiliated with any organization. I'm here because I care about my fellow citizens. Thank you for your time. I want to encourage you to be leaders and join other jurisdictions across the state that have already passed similar legislation. I want to remind you that this doesn't preclude owner move-in. If someone wants to move into a unit, this is a protection for tenants mostly in large unit buildings. I don't think I need to remind you on specific percentages of rent increase, on the cost of living increase, and how those are directly correlated to increased houselessness for our fellow neighbors. Prior item, agenda item 41, address homelessness. These two, there's a direct line. If you do not pass this protection, you literally will be causing people to become houseless. There's no question about that. Although it seems like Bell Oaks is offering reallocation costs, these are not being offered to other people, and most importantly, they're insufficient. It's not cheap to move. Again, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and I also want to state that it was very disrespectful to the people that were here earlier to have a 30-minute break. Okay, that's 3 hours that people have been here, more than 3 hours. Many of them were not given a voice. So I'm grateful that I was given the opportunity to speak, but please consider and designated your break times the people that have been here for hours.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin Bolts.
How's everybody doing today? I want to talk about power dynamics and sort of things like that. I'm going to guess that everyone who sits between my arms doesn't rent or isn't homeless. So we got a bunch of wealthy people in nice clothes who get to decide what happens to a bunch of other fucking people. And it doesn't affect you, which is terrible. Like you just said about this, she's looking at her phone or something. Like you just said about the property owner, he has 10 units that are behind on code, but we're not penalizing him or holding him accountable. We're not telling him he can't kick people out until he fixes his stuff. He's allowed to let people live in code violating squalor, it sounds like, and then kick them out when he sees a market opportunity to make more money. Sounds like what's going on to me. So why don't you buck up and hold the person responsible who has all the money and the building instead of putting it on the people who don't have almost anything? So you're all very comfortable and you have homes, and that's nice. I rent, most people behind me probably do. The day will come where you won't be comfortable. You might not have a home, because most of the people who you left behind by letting them be homeless and not giving them a place to rent, they're gonna stop coming to meetings like this and they're gonna start showing up to your homes. That day's coming. Get ready for it.
Yeah, we will. That is the last card I have. If there's anybody else, then Supervisor Cerna.
All right, thank you. First, let me start by expressing my sincere gratitude to everyone who has been extremely patient today and took time out of your days to be here and express your opinion about what I believe is a very, very important subject, and it's a very critical day for this board. As was mentioned many times by the speakers, it was at our, I believe at our October 22nd meeting that I did ask our CEO to bring this back for vote in an emergency context, because I do think it is an emergency, as also has been referenced by a number of speakers. And there's not many instances where you can really say something is a no-brainer or is low-hanging fruit, choose your metaphor, in what we're expected to do as elected decision makers. But I feel strongly that this is one of those times, because we're really talking about a decision that has to be made by 4/5 of us, by a hyper majority of this board. for protections that are going to last for 7 weeks. And we're really, I think, being asked to address the fact that there are some bad actors out there that are gaming the system. They see what's on the horizon in terms of the beginning of the calendar year. I think we have not just the Bell Oaks example, but we're hearing from a representative that represents tenants from across the state that this seems to be approaching epidemic levels. And so I believe strongly that it's absolutely incumbent on this board to be very clear and that we best represent our constituents that perhaps haven't been affected yet, but could tomorrow if we don't pass this. And so for that reason, I am moving this emergency ordinance. I would ask my colleagues to think carefully about what's in front of us. I think it's the right thing to do for a lot of different reasons. I don't want to belabor the point, but for me, again, this is something that should be crystal clear to all five of us. That is the right policy measure for the residents of Sacramento County. So that's my motion that we approve staff recommendation.
The chair will second, and Supervisor Natoli.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, thanks to all who've addressed us today. And obviously, since we first heard about this a couple of weeks ago, obviously there's been some activity that I think certainly has reflected efforts to address the situation was brought to our attention when folks appeared before us on October 22nd. But I would just say too that in thinking about this and certainly reflecting on what's before us and hearing from many of you who are renters, and I'll just say that I would think most of us have rented sometime during our lives, and I know I did, and again, you hearken back to if you were in this vulnerable situation and were either on a fixed income or in a situation where you weren't really empowered because of the market conditions that relate to, even if offers such as those have been put out here were made, it wouldn't provide sufficient funds to go forward. And I think Mr. Kreitz's comments, but others here too, that if you're on a fixed income, particularly if you're on Social Security, that the ability to actually accumulate enough dollars to make a move to cover the deposits, the first and last month's rent, and other components of that really puts people in a very, very vulnerable situation, let alone those who may have families and children, may have other situations in their lives that reflect on their inability to realize additional income, and so you're very, very precarious. And it's not to say that obviously the housing and certainly the folks who own the property don't have rights as well, but in this situation, obviously, the state legislature, took this up and debated it in the state capitol, and it was enacted into law. And there we have this void, a period of time. It's not really a void because it's provided an opportunity for some of those who I think would take advantage of others, and whether that's intentional or not, that's I think the end result can still be the same. Folks will end up out of a house, out of a home, and I think another comment that was made here, certainly I can reflect on today, is that as much as this is housing and it may be rental housing, that it is someone's home, and whether you've lived there for 4 years or 40 years or 4 months, you make the investment obviously in not only paying the rent, but in making that your home and all the things that go with that, with your daily life. And so I think what's been proposed here, obviously, it may seem modest in some respects, but I think it's an important time in this community, certainly in our state, with all the various components of impacts of certainly income, but also of housing stability. And so I'm prepared to support the ordinance here today, and I think it provides an opportunity to address some of the vulnerability that people currently are experiencing in our community, and hopefully will prevent some of the things that we're talked about as being potential impacts if we don't do this. Thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions from the board? We do have a motion and a second.
Sorry?
Are you
I'm trying to get the button here.
Supervisor Peters.
I agree this is a difficult issue. It's think it comes through to all of us in our heart, but this is effective only in the unincorporated county, not in any city in Sacramento County. I want to repeat that. And this issue came to me a couple of weeks before it became public. The California Apartment Association let me know that there was a particular apartment building that was having these evictions, and we immediately jumped on it and found the owners, which was not easy, but we did. And they have been working, I also called SHRA to see if there were any voucher recipients who lived in Bell Oaks where SHRA might be able to help, and to their credit, they jumped on it and contacted all of those people. The Apartment Association, in working with the owner, came up with a solution of a cash incentive for individuals who, in that apartment house, the rents run from $950 to $1,050, and the incentive is $2,500, which is, if you compare it to the state ordinance, it's more I think you're getting 1 month rent incentive in the state law, and this is almost 3 times. In addition, the individuals who have the vouchers, they're very close to working out a solution where they can stay in their apartment. And I'm afraid if we pass this, that won't happen. We're afraid of being evicted. Well,
Please. Thank you.
okay. So I think if there had been more time to deliberate this, we might have come to a different conclusion. But honestly, my office has had 2 phone calls, and that's all, to complain about this. I know that there's more people who have had this issue than 2, but that's the level of interest in.
Excuse me.
We know you don't care.
Excuse me. Please, thank you.
So if we would be interested in continuing this item for a couple weeks where we can have time to.
Are you gonna sleep on the street soon? Did you lose your house?
I'm sorry, but
No, you're not. She's not.
Well, we are conducting business. Please don't interrupt. Don't interrupt, or we can have you removed from the chambers.
Right.
Thank you. Supervisor Peters, you have the floor.
Thank you. So I would say that if you would like to extend this until our next meeting, where we have more time to finalize some of the things that that were taking place and we're working on, and have the ability to work it out with the tenants so they can stay in their apartments, then I'd be interested.
Okay. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Excuse me. Supervisor Cerna has the floor.
Thank you. So given Supervisor Peters' comments, I would just plead with her that, there's no time. It's an emergency ordinance for a reason. B, you spent a lot of what you had to say about one single instance, and this is really about making sure that in the future, just in the next 7 weeks, that the same doesn't happen again. Otherwise, if we don't pass this today, quite frankly, as a member of this board, I'm going to be ashamed if we find out later that there's more people that have been victimized by this practice. And quite frankly, if that happens, and if those people become homeless, that's on our shoulders.
Yeah.
And this is not usual. I don't plead necessarily with other members of the board for their vote like this, but it's a supermajority that we need to pass this today. So I'd ask you, please, to dig deep and please do the right thing.
Okay, Supervisor Frost.
Okay, I want to just tell you there were a couple people who came up and suggested that I wasn't listening, and I was, and I want you to know there's times during public comment when I'm taking notes or sometimes I'm typing notes, but I am listening, and I do care. And I really, my heart is breaking over this. I wasn't one of those people who originally supported rent control, and for this very reason. This is like the beginning of something that's going to continue to play out. And the first thing, what I really just wanted to quickly say, and I want to, I have to say that I'm like Supervisor Peters. My office did not receive any, I think we received 2 emails, and we did not receive a lot of correspondence around evictions. So I'm just telling you what my office, the communications that we received in my office. That doesn't mean that I don't care, and I'm really glad that the county staff and SHRA and the Rental Apartment Association and Supervisor Peters have been working with folks to try to work out their individual situations, and I think we absolutely, definitely have to do that. We need to make sure nobody is homeless or put out of their home. I do want to say that
I'm sorry, Supervisor
listen.
Frost, I apologize, but I will call a recess and we will clear the room if necessary. Please show respect. We can disagree on subjects, but we will act accordingly at a public hearing. Please, Supervisor Frost, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. I have been a tenant, and I have also been a landlord. And I know that in Sacramento County, 44% of the residents are tenants, which means that 44% of 1.5 million people rely on average people like me, and who are willing or able to save their money for a down payment and purchase a property with the hopes of having an investment that will make a little bit of money and that can provide housing for someone else. And I want you to know that I was one of those landlords that actually always tried to rent below the market. I tried to get someone who was a good tenant that would take good care of the property and give them a good deal so they wouldn't want to leave. And I think there's a lot of landlords like that out there. The problem with rent control and with trying to regulate this is that now landlords don't have the same flexibility to work in the same way, and they're trying to get situated probably in a way that will allow them to afford to continue to rent at a lower level. They're doing the best they can to try to make sure they can make ends meet. It does come down to, I think, and I'm not even sure you can receive my words, but I wanted to try because this is important. You could be a homeowner.
No, I can't.
That was the wrong thing to say. The opportunity. We have opportunities.
Okay.
I'm on it. Right on it. Fucking hell.
Okay, this is my last warning before I take a recess.
The audience.
Okay, I'm going to I'll just continue and close by saying that this emergency ordinance, my concern around the emergency ordinance is for only 70 days, that there could be unintended consequences for a lot of other situations that are out there, that there's a lot of good landlords out there, and there's a lot more going on out there. So I would concur with Supervisor Peters that I'm not able to support the emergency ordinance at this time. I could support continuing it and continuing the conversation, but at this time, I'm concerned that.
Please.
Can't even name them.
No more warnings. Are you done, Supervisor Frost?
I think I'll just close with that.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. If there's no more comments by the board, please vote.
We'll go be at your houses next. Know that. You'll find out where you live and come there. Talk to you there, but you won't listen here.
And the motion fails.
You need to show it.
Yeah, you need to show
Sorry,
it.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
We're concerned with people who have 2 houses and those.
We're going to take a 5-minute recess.
Terrible person.
There's no way to do it.